I keep seeing people online talk about journaling like it completely changed their life. And meanwhile, I'll buy a notebook, write in it for like 3 days, forget it exists for 2 months, randomly trauma dump in it one night at 1 a.m., and then disappear again. So if you've ever felt like, I want to journal, but I genuinely don't know how people stay consistent with this, then you are definitely not alone, friend. I think what a lot of people do is make journaling too complicated. They think they need perfect handwriting, beautiful paper, a spiritual routine, and a positive mindset. I know I've done stuff like this. I'll make it so neat and pretty that I spend entirely too much time on it and then avoid doing it. Or I'll avoid writing things I need to because I'm afraid someone will read it someday. You'd think I'd just burn it like many people do, but no. That won't work in my head because I've put entirely too much time into creating it to just burn it after all. And then the avoidance continues. But journaling isn't supposed to be neat and ordered and perfect. It's supposed to be messy and chaotic. It may be repetitive at times. It may be angry at times. It may be petty at times. And that's normal. Journaling is supposed to create a space where you can understand yourself better. Sometimes, in order to do that, though, you have to clear out all of the crap first. So today, I'll be sharing how to actually start journaling. If you are someone who overthinks journaling, struggles to stay consistent, or never knows what to write in the first place, then you have come to the right place. If you've been here before, then welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. This is The Expanding Soul, a place where we explore growth, healing, and what it really means to become the best version of ourselves. My name is Kristen, and today's episode on journaling has been on my mind for one honest reason. I've been personally avoiding my journaling practice. Not necessarily intentionally. I know I need to do it. I know it helps. So maybe I just need to remind myself why I started in the first place. Hopefully, by the end of this episode, I will have convinced both myself and you to just start writing. Because journaling is one of those things that sounds super simple on the surface, but it can genuinely change your relationship with yourself. I think a lot of us resist because we overthink it. We think we need the fancy journal or have super deep thoughts. Or the biggest one, we think we have to know exactly what to say. And when we don't, we just freeze. But I think not knowing is the whole point. We're journaling so we can understand ourselves better. If we already understood ourselves, we wouldn't really need to journal. Most real journaling looks like messy, fragmented thoughts, unfinished sentences, crying halfway through, or writing, "I literally do not know." That's real journaling. That's the journaling that leads to healing. There are other reasons we avoid journaling. One reason is that sometimes it can suck. Research shows that we can sometimes feel more anxious, sad, or guilty directly after writing. This is especially true if you're writing out a past trauma. It can hurt to face the things that we've been trying not to think about. Honestly, I think this is part of my problem. I did a big wave of journaling, and damn, did it free a weight off of me. I was happier, I was enjoying life more, but the writing itself was very time consuming because it's hard to open up all of that and not finish it because of time. So I would end up pushing through because I prefer having some sort of healthy closure. And writing about past traumas is painful. I had to relive it in a sense. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of tears. And now I know I have deeper things to confront, so I'm avoiding again. But if last time created that much change for me, imagine what this deeper level of healing could create. I think I've been so focused on avoiding the pain that I forgot all about the calm that was created in my life after the pain. Another reason people avoid journaling is just from a lack of time. Life is busy. Sometimes it's hard to find time to even rest, let alone journal. But if it helps us live better lives, I think we have to find a way to fit it in somehow, even if it's just for 5 minutes. We don't have to do a trauma dump session every time we journal. But every time, just expressing ourselves like that does do positive things for our brains and our lives. So let's talk about those things. Let's get into the science side of journaling. I think a lot of people dismiss the power of journaling as something that's just a trend or something that isn't needed because whatever they'd write is already in their heads. But there's actually a lot of psychological research behind why writing can genuinely help emotional processing, stress regulation, and self-awareness. One of the biggest reasons journaling helps is because it changes the way the brain processes emotions. When emotions stay trapped in your head, especially stress or anxiety, they tend to stay emotionally charged. And that's because emotional experiences are heavily connected to the limbic system, especially the amygdala, which is basically involved in processing fear, threat detection, and emotional reactions. So when you're anxious or overwhelmed, your brain can get stuck in emotional looping. That's why we replay our fears, mistakes, and worst-case scenarios over and over in our heads. Your brain is trying to process unresolved emotional information, but it keeps cycling without resolution. And writing helps interrupt that cycle. Because the moment you start putting feelings into words, your brain shifts activity more toward the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain involved in logic, reasoning, organization, and emotional regulation. So in simple terms, writing helps move emotions from pure reaction into conscious processing. You're no longer just emotionally drowning in the feeling. You're observing it, organizing it, and naming it. And naming emotions is actually incredibly important psychologically. There's research showing that labeling emotions can reduce emotional intensity, because vague emotions feel more overwhelming to the brain than identified emotions. For example, I feel horrible feels emotionally huge and undefined, but I feel rejected, or I feel embarrassed, I feel disconnected. Those are more specific. Specific emotions can create clarity, and clarity helps regulate the nervous system. Another thing journaling helps with is cognitive overload. Your brain is constantly processing massive amounts of information. Stress, responsibilities, social interactions, memories, fears, future planning. And when too much stays mentally active at once, your nervous system can stay in a low-grade stress state. That's why overthinking feels physically exhausting sometimes. Your brain is literally burning energy, cycling through unresolved thought patterns. Writing things down reduces that mental load. Psychologists sometimes call this offloading. You're transferring internal chaos into external structure. And once thoughts exist physically on paper, the brain no longer has to work as hard trying to hold on to everything at once. That's why people often feel calmer after journaling, even if they didn't solve anything. Because emotional relief doesn't always come from fixing problems immediately. Sometimes relief comes from finally expressing what's been mentally trapped. Journaling can also help with emotional integration. And this is something I think is really important. A lot of people suppress emotions because they think avoiding feelings makes them disappear. But suppressed emotions usually don't disappear. They just relocate. Sometimes they become anxiety, sometimes irritability, sometimes burnout, emotional numbness, or even physical tension in the body. Your nervous system still carries unresolved stress even when your conscious mind tries to ignore it. And expressive writing gives those emotions somewhere to go. Writing gives your brain a different job. Instead of, I feel anxious and I'll let that overrun my entire mindset, the job becomes, I feel anxious, so I need to figure out why and address it. There's also research showing that journaling can help people process difficult experiences more effectively over time because writing naturally encourages meaning making. Humans psychologically need narrative. We want to understand, why did this happen? What did I learn? What does this mean about me? How did this affect me? And journaling helps organize experiences into a coherent story instead of fragmented emotional chaos. That's part of why writing about painful experiences can eventually reduce their emotional intensity. Not because the event suddenly becomes okay, but because the brain begins integrating it instead of endlessly reacting to it. Once the brain starts processing that emotion, it's easier for the brain to let it go. Whereas until it has a chance to do that processing, it's going to live in that emotion and allow the emotion to affect every area of life. I think one of the most powerful scientific benefits of journaling is self-awareness. Because patterns become visible on paper in ways they don't always feel visible in your head. You start noticing what triggers you, what environments drain you, what relationships constantly exhaust you, what fears repeat themselves, what emotional cycles keep happening. And self-awareness is foundational for growth because you can't change patterns you refuse to notice. Journaling creates something really important psychologically, and that's a pause between feeling and reacting, a pause between emotion and impulse. And that pause is where emotional regulation starts developing. Instead of immediately spiraling, shutting down, lashing out, or dissociating, you pause, you reflect, you process. And honestly, that's the biggest thing people need to learn when they're striving for emotional maturity. Not never being emotional, but learning how to sit with emotions without instantly becoming controlled by them. Now I want to talk about the spiritual side of journaling for a minute because I think journaling can be a powerful tool to get to know your inner voice better, to get to know your dreams and desires better, and to help you figure out how to make the most out of your life. Journaling can be a tool to build a relationship with yourself, with your inner voice. I mean, think about it. Most of us are severely disconnected from ourselves because we're constantly being bombarded by external stimulation. You have physical stimulation, like music playing, notifications going off, scrolling constantly, watching videos while eating, listening to podcasts while driving, filling every quiet moment with noise. And then you have all of the mental stimulation running through your head, like other people's opinions, other people's lifestyles, other people's expectations, social media telling you who you should be, what success should look like, what healing should look like. And eventually, it becomes hard to tell what it is that we actually think, what we actually feel, and what it is that we want. But journaling helps us come back to our core selves. Because when you sit down and have an honest conversation with yourself, without performing, without trying to sound knowledgeable or wise, without trying to impress anyone, the noise goes away and you can hear your real inner voice. A lot of us ignore that inner voice, that intuition. Intuition is quiet and calm, whereas things like fear, anxiety, or ego, those are loud and easier to pay attention to. But intuition is subtle. It's that feeling in your body that says, this relationship feels off. This environment is draining me. I'm pretending to be okay. I need to slow down. But we don't prioritize listening to that voice. Taking the time to journal creates the stillness needed to access these inner intuitions and to hear those thoughts clearly. If we truly want to know ourselves fully, we have to take time to sit with ourselves long enough to listen. This is why journaling can be such a powerful self-awareness practice. As you do it more, you start to see all kinds of things about yourself. Patterns become visible and allow you to have realizations about your life. You may realize that you keep shrinking yourself around certain people. You keep repeating the same relationship dynamic. You chase validation. You ignore your needs. While yes, these realizations can be uncomfortable, being aware of them gives us the power to create change. You can't heal patterns that you refuse to notice. Journaling can be a form of shadow work, which is basically exploring the parts of yourself you normally avoid or suppress. Your insecurities, your jealousy, your fear, your anger, the parts of yourself you judge the hardest. You don't come at it from a place of shame or critique, but rather a place of logic and compassion. The goal is only to understand yourself, because we can't heal by pretending those parts of us don't exist. Healing is all about learning where they came from and how they've been protecting you. I mean, some of the most healing journal entries aren't the pretty inspirational ones. They're the gritty, brutally honest ones. The ones where you finally admit, I'm hurt, I'm scared, I'm lonely, I'm exhausted, I'm angry. I'm trying so hard to hold everything together. That kind of honesty is powerful. That's the moment where your inner voice is finally heard. It can feel like a relief just to know. And in that moment, you reconnect with the part of yourself that you've lost. All because you just took the time to write it out. I also think journaling can deepen mindfulness, because mindfulness is really just awareness without immediate judgment. And journaling slows your thoughts down enough to observe them instead of immediately reacting to them. Instead of spiraling emotionally, you pause, you reflect, you witness yourself. And over time, that changes your relationship with your emotions completely. Because instead of fearing your emotions, you start understanding them. I think that's one of the deepest forms of self-connection that there is. Not becoming a perfect version of yourself, but becoming honest enough to fully see yourself. Journaling can also help you understand your dreams and desires more clearly. A lot of us walk through life on autopilot, just flowing through life without taking action, never stopping to ask, what do I want my life to feel like? Journaling gives us a space to explore that question. When you write consistently, you start to notice what keeps coming up. All of the things you secretly wish for, or goals that keep coming up, what kind of relationships you crave, the environments that make you feel alive, or the version of yourself that you keep imagining. Sometimes desires show up on paper before you fully admit them out loud. You might realize, I actually want a slower life, or I want deeper relationships. I want more creativity. I want peace more than achievement. I want freedom. I want purpose. I want to feel like myself again. That's so powerful because clarity changes the direction of your life. You can't build a fulfilling life if you never slow down enough to understand what fulfillment even means to you personally. Journaling helps uncover that. It helps separate your real desires from social conditioning, comparison, fear, and external pressure. I think a lot of people already know what they want deep down. They just haven't been quiet long enough to hear themselves say it. Now, once you do figure out what exactly it is you want, journaling can also help you manifest it. And I don't mean manifest in the way where you just write it down and it magically appears in your life. I mean manifest in the way that you can explore the desire more by figuring out the steps you need to take to actually achieve it. Say you really want a certain job. Do a journal entry where you put the job at the top of the page and work backwards through the steps you would need to take in order to get it. Do you need new qualifications, different experience, more education? If so, how do you get it? Do you need to start a savings? Do you need to enroll in a class? You are not going to reach your goal overnight, but this will help you find the small steps you can take today to work towards that dream. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather take baby steps toward a dream than I would want to stay stuck, mindlessly going with the flow. Plus, manifestation is all about consistency and repetition. The more you write about your dreams, the more you train your brain that these dreams are important to you. And once your brain knows this, it will use the reticular activating system to focus your attention onto any opportunity that may arise in your life that could push you toward your dream. That's manifestation. Now, another reason I think people struggle to start journaling is because they think there's one correct way to do it. Like, they think journaling means sitting down every morning and writing 3 beautiful pages about gratitude and self-discovery. And if that works for you, that's great. But really, there are so many different ways to journal, depending on what you need emotionally, mentally, or spiritually at that point in your life. And I think finding the right style for you makes journaling feel way less intimidating. So I want to go through a few different types because maybe one of these will click with somebody listening. The first type of journaling I want to go over is called brain dump journaling. And this is probably the best place to start if your mind feels constantly overwhelmed. Brain dump journaling is exactly what it sounds like. You just dump everything in your head onto that piece of paper. No structure, no grammar rules, no making it sound good, no trying to be profound. Just thoughts, stresses, random emotions, to-do lists, fears, confusion, whatever it is sitting in your mind. This is especially helpful for overthinkers because overthinking usually happens when your brain is trying to hold on to too many unresolved thoughts at once. And sometimes writing things down creates enough mental space for your nervous system to calm down a little bit. Some journal entries might literally just be, I have no idea what I'm doing lately and my brain feels loud. That still counts. The second type is prompt journaling. This is really helpful if you sit down with a blank page and immediately freeze because you don't know what to write. Prompts can give your mind a direction. And sometimes one good question can unlock emotions or realizations you didn't even know were there. Some prompts that I like using are, what's been draining my energy lately? What emotion have I been avoiding? What do I need right now? What keeps repeating in my life? What version of myself feels the most authentic? What am I pretending not to care about? And that last one is dangerous in the best kind of way. Because sometimes we act emotionally detached about things that actually deeply affect us. Prompt journaling helps you go deeper than surface level thoughts. And if you want more journal prompts, I've added a link in the references to decideyourlegacy.com with 100 other journal prompts you can use. And you can also Google it and get tons more ideas. Another type is emotional check-in journaling. And this one is really simple, but honestly incredibly powerful. You basically ask yourself, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling it? What do I need to do right now? That's it. A lot of people move through life so disconnected from themselves emotionally that they rarely pause long enough to even identify what it is that they're feeling. Sometimes people think they're angry when they're actually hurt, or they think they're lazy when they're actually burnt out, or they'll think they're unmotivated when they're actually emotionally exhausted. Emotional check-ins help build emotional awareness over time. Then there is gratitude journaling. And I want to explain this carefully because I think gratitude gets misunderstood sometimes. Gratitude is not pretending everything is perfect. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's not toxic positivity. It's not forcing yourself to ignore pain. You can still acknowledge hard emotions while appreciating small moments. And I think the healthiest gratitude is realistic gratitude. Not my life is perfect, but maybe the weather felt nice today, or I laughed harder than I have in a while, or I got through a difficult day, or even it was nice playing outside with my dog today. Small moments matter. And training your brain to notice small moments of safety, beauty, peace, or connection can genuinely shift your mindset over time. Another powerful type is shadow work journaling. This is probably the most emotionally intense type. Shadow work is basically exploring the parts of yourself you normally avoid, suppress, or judge. Your insecurities, your fears, your jealousy, your abandonment wounds, your triggers, your need for control, your healthy coping patterns. And this can feel uncomfortable because most people don't enjoy confronting those parts of themselves. But avoiding them doesn't make them disappear. Usually, it just makes them operate unconsciously. Shadow work journaling is not about shaming yourself. It's about understanding yourself. Because when you understand where your reactions come from, you stop seeing yourself as broken and start seeing yourself as human. And that is a very powerful catalyst for change. And then there's future self journaling or goal journaling. This is where you write about the kind of person you want to become, the kind of life you want to create, the energy you want to embody, the habits you want to build, the relationships you want to attract. And I actually think this one can be really powerful too, because it forces you to define what alignment means to you personally. Not what social media says fulfillment should look like. Not what society says success should look like. But what genuinely feels meaningful to you. Because clarity changes behavior. When you become clear on the kind of life you actually want, you start noticing which choices move you closer to it and which choices move you away from it. Now, you don't have to choose just one journaling style. Some days you might need to brain dump. Some days you might need to use prompts. Other days you might write one sentence. And some days you might not journal at all. That's okay. The goal here isn't perfection. The goal is connection with yourself. I do want to take a minute to address the question of what to do with what you write afterwards. Some people like to keep everything in their journal where they can read through it and look for changes or patterns. Some people prefer to release it by ripping it up or burning it. And some people like to do a combination of both, where they keep the good, exploratory information about themselves, but release the negative or angry ones. Do whatever feels right for you. There is no right way. As long as you feel relieved and empowered, that's all that matters. Okay, so now that we've talked about the science behind journaling, the spiritual side of it, and the different ways you can do it, I want to talk about something that I think is probably the biggest challenge for most people. Actually sticking with it and journaling consistently. Before I go into that though, I do think it's important for me to say this first. I am absolutely not someone who has journaled perfectly every day for years. Far from that. I've bought journals with the best intentions, written in them consistently for a week, then forgot they existed, found them months later, started again, stopped again. So if you're someone who has struggled to stay consistent with journaling, trust me, you are not the only one. I think sometimes people hear a podcast episode like this and assume the person talking has mastered the habit. But I'm still learning too. Doing this podcast is just what keeps me accountable to learning the things I need to learn to grow, like better journaling habits. I don't think anyone necessarily quits journaling because they don't want to do it or because they don't want to see the growth that comes of it. I think many times we just make it more complicated than it needs to be. Sometimes we humans are good at having an all or nothing mindset. We make the decision that we want to change, and so we expect ourselves to be able to become a completely different person overnight. And we tell ourselves all of the things we're going to start doing. I'm going to wake up every morning at 5:30 a.m. Or I'm going to journal for 30 minutes a day. Or I'm going to meditate every day. Or I'm going to drink more water. Or I'm going to get my entire life together. And then real life happens. We get busy, we get tired, we skip a day, and then our brains act like one missed day means that the whole thing is ruined. But consistency doesn't mean perfection. Missing a day doesn't mean you failed. Missing a week doesn't mean you failed. Honestly, even missing a month doesn't mean you failed. It just means you're human. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They start judging themselves for not journaling instead of simply returning to it. The truth is, most healthy habits are built through returning. Not perfection, but returning to the goal. Coming back after you've stopped. Coming back after life gets busy. Coming back after you've forgotten. Coming back without making yourself feel guilty about it. So right now, make a commitment to come back to your journaling practice. Or if you never had one, make a commitment to start. You don't have to commit to every day. You don't even have to commit to every week. Just commit to something. I want to give you a really simple journaling method that takes about 5 minutes that you can do right now. No fancy notebook, no perfect morning routine, no spiritual expertise required. Just 5 minutes and some self-honesty. So the first step is a quick 1-minute check-in with yourself. Start by asking yourself, how am I feeling right now? Not how you think you should feel, not how you wish you felt, but how do you actually feel? Maybe you're stressed. Maybe you're excited. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe you're grateful. Maybe you're frustrated. There is no right or wrong answer. Just identify whatever it is that you're feeling. Sometimes I think we move through life so fast that we don't even stop long enough to identify what it is we feel. So that's your first step. Just check in. The second step is to spend about 2 minutes reflecting on why you feel this way. Don't overthink it, just start writing. Maybe you're stressed because you've been taking on too much. Maybe you're anxious because you're worried about something important coming up. Maybe you're feeling disconnected because you've been neglecting yourself. Maybe you don't know why. That's okay too. Remember, the goal isn't to have all the answers. The goal is awareness of what you do know. The third step is to spend 1 minute asking yourself what you need. This might be the most important question. What do I need right now? Not next year, not next month, but right now. Do you need rest? A conversation? A boundary? A walk outside? More self-compassion? A break from social media? What would genuinely support you today? And the final step is to spend 1 minute creating a simple intention. Not a huge life goal, just one thing you'd like to put some focus on. Maybe today I'm going to be kinder to myself. Today I'm going to slow down. Today I'm going to stop overcomplicating things. Today, I'm going to trust myself a little more. Just pick out one intention that you can put some focus on today. And that's it. That's the entire journaling exercise. Just 5 minutes. What I love about this method is that it combines emotional awareness, self-reflection, and intentionality without feeling overwhelming. I think a lot of people assume journaling has to be this long, deep process. But sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is spend 5 minutes being honest with yourself. And if 5 minutes feels manageable, you're much more likely to actually do it. Because consistency built from simplicity is usually more sustainable than perfection built from pressure. Before we wrap up, I want to give you a little encouragement about what consistent journaling can do. Journaling isn't one of those things where you do it once and suddenly have a life-changing breakthrough. Sometimes that's possible, but more often, the changes are subtle at first. Like I mentioned earlier, you might start noticing patterns. You might realize that the same frustrations keep showing up, the same fears, the same insecurities, the same relationship dynamics. And while that can feel frustrating, it's actually a sign that your self-awareness is growing. You can't change what you can't see. You may also start noticing that your emotions feel less overwhelming. Not because difficult emotions disappear, but because you're processing them instead of carrying them around all day. Sometimes just putting a feeling into words makes it feel more manageable. You might begin noticing what genuinely matters to you too. The things that give you energy, the things that drain you, the goals that actually belong to you versus the goals you inherited from other people. And I think one of the biggest changes is that you start developing a different relationship with yourself. Instead of constantly reacting to your thoughts and emotions, you become more curious about them. You start asking, why did that affect me so much? Why does this keep showing up? What is this trying to teach me? And over time, that curiosity can create a lot more self-compassion. Because understanding yourself tends to soften your judgment of yourself. You realize you're not just a collection of random thoughts and emotions. There's usually a reason behind what you're feeling. And journaling helps you uncover those reasons. So if you decide to start journaling after listening to this episode, don't look for perfection. Don't look for profound entries every day. Just pay attention to what you begin noticing about yourself. Because sometimes the biggest benefit of journaling isn't what you write. It's what you discover. I want to leave you with one final thought. A lot of us, myself included, have spent a lot of time looking for answers outside of ourselves. But a lot of the time, the answers that we're seeking come from within us. And that's the true beauty of what journaling can do. It can create the space for you to listen to what your mind, your heart, and your intuition have been trying to tell you. Because underneath all the noise of daily life, there's a version of you that knows what you need. A version of you that knows what matters. A version of you that knows what feels aligned and what doesn't. And journaling can be one way of reconnecting with that voice. That level of self-awareness is powerful because when you understand yourself, you approach life differently. You set boundaries differently. You navigate relationships differently. You begin creating a life that feels more authentic to who you really are. So if you've been curious about journaling, maybe this is your sign to give it a try. Not perfectly, not every day, not with the expectation that it's going to change your life overnight. Just start. Open a notebook, open your notes app, grab a piece of paper, and ask yourself one simple question. How am I really doing? You might be surprised by the answer. Thank you all so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. What has your experience with journaling been? Has it helped you? Have you struggled with it? I'd love to keep the conversation going. And as always, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of this community. And thank you for taking the time to invest in your own growth and healing. Until next time, keep expanding, keep growing, and keep coming home to yourself. I'll talk to you next time, friends. Bye.